Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 90 of the All Dolphins podcast. Omar, we're almost about ready to reach triple digits, and then we're going to restart the clock per the overwhelming vote in favor of continuing with associating the episode number with players who wore that jersey number. So today for 90, I'm going to go with a former first round pick in a year when the Dolphins had two first round picks, which was 1992. They had cornerback Troy Vincent with the seventh overall pick, acquired
Marco Coleman.
very good Marco Coleman, defensive and outside linebacker from Georgia Tech, who they selected with their own pick that year, which was 12th overall. Had a fairly decent career with the Dolphins, wound up playing for the Chargers, I want to say, and then maybe some other teams, not quite sure. Unless I'm mistaken, I believe he's into coaching right now, or got into coaching. But solid player, and he was like an edge defender at a time when the Dolphins were playing in a 3-4 scheme back in those days. So
we go back and forth from the 3-4 to 4-3 to the 3-4 to the hybrid to the it's funny how many. I mean, you've probably seen way more schemes than you haven't seen. But I disagree with your numbers. I think Adewale Agunlie was probably the best number 90. Timeout?
No? Yeah, because there's a mistake you're looking at. If I don't know where you got your info, but look, he wore 90 one year. His best seasons were with number 93.
Okay, then I'm going to come back at that.
Okay,
and I'm going to say Charles Harris, which I have a great story for.
Go for it.
This is back in the wake of the Deion Jordan draft. You remember the Deion Jordan draft where they traded up for a player, not even factoring in his off the field issues, but they had never seen him play in their scheme in Oregon. He had played in basically in a 3-4. They wanted him to be a hand in the ground 4-3, and they'd never seen him play that scheme. Or is it the other way around? I can't remember.
It's the other way around, I think. Yeah, he was like a Jason Taylor type at Oregon. They wanted him to play with his hand in the ground, if memory serves.
Okay. And so that was one of the more colossal mistakes because he wasn't a good fit for the scheme that the Dolphins were running. And then years later, they drafted Charles Harris. Similar situation, a guy who had and I remember talking to, at that time, general manager Chris Kerr, who was not in charge during the Deion Jordan draft. That was Jeff Ireland. And I wanted to do a column on the lessons learned from Deion Jordan, because that was a draft where you just knew the Dolphins needed pass rushing help or were going to address the position. And oddly enough, they selected Charles Harris out of the University of Missouri, and he had no experience playing in the scheme that they were presently playing in. I believe he was a 3-4 outside linebacker, and they wanted him to be a hand in the ground. I can't remember which one it is. We've switched schemes so often.
It does get some confusing with those things, yes.
And he just was not a good fit for the scheme. However, he's gone on with the Lions and has made a pretty respectable career for himself. But just that guy, he looked all world, but just never panned out.
Two quick notes to add to this is number one, Charles Harris. By the way, Charles Harris, a team captain with the Lions this season. The painful thing about Charles Harris, it would be bad enough if they just missed on that pick. It's just watching TJ Watt continuing to just rip it up in the NFL, because the Dolphins could have had him. And then the one thing in the Dolphins' favor, if there can be such a thing in that 2013 draft with Deion Jordan, if you remember the trade, they moved up from 12 to 3 in the first round. All they gave up was a second round pick. And we've seen, by the way, it's the same move that San Francisco made when they made the trade with the Dolphins in 2021, and they wound up giving the Dolphins 3 first round picks. So in terms of value, the trade value, the Dolphins absolutely killed it with with that pick in 2013, except they picked the wrong player. If we mention TJ Watt, he was named AFC Defensive Player of the Month on Thursday, which also was the day when Tua Tagovailoa was named the AFC Offensive Player of the Month, in another one of those no duh awards for the Dolphins. Like, we didn't know it was coming, considering the ridiculous numbers they put up over the first month of the season. Tua currently the front runner for betting favorite for NFL MVP. There was no shot he wasn't winning this award.
I wrote a column on alldolphins.com basically saying, and I know this is going to be a controversial take, but I give the majority of the credit for the early success that the Dolphins have had to Tua Tagovailoa, just because he's taking that next step in his quarterback progression, development, execution, understanding of the offense. They're taking a next step with the motions, no pre-snap penalties. No, everybody is doing well offensively. But there's one catalyst, and it benefits one person more than everybody else, and that's Tua. The run game. I've always talked about it, them needing the run game to alleviate some of the pressure from Tua. Pass protection. Tua's getting the ball out of his hands faster than any other quarterback in the NFL. And I believe he's got 2 yards on everybody in terms of yards per completion in terms of attempts. Big play production.
Air yards per attempt, I believe, is the stat.
Yeah. He's at 10 yards per attempt, where I think number 2 might be Herbert at 7. Somewhere along. No, you're like, no.
Oh, I said not sure. I don't know. I wasn't like.
Yeah, I know I was looking at your favorite quarterback in that stat category.
Not my favorite quarterback. I just have a lot of respect for his ability, and I think this BS of he doesn't have it because the Chargers suck every year and have no defense is garbage. But by all means, I don't want to take away from Tua's moment, because Tua is absolutely balling, and I have said, and I'm going to say it again: if the season ends today, he's the MVP, and I don't think there's much of a doubt. Go ahead.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of how they continue to play. This week is a big matchup just because I believe they're going to build up the Dolphins in order to knock them off the perch if they struggle against the Buffalo Bills. But obviously, this is one of the fastest, most exciting offenses in the NFL, and everybody wants the Dolphins on their TV, and everybody's curious and wants to see them. And I think Tua is the catalyst and the reason why.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not buying exactly what you're saying right now. No, I'm not talking about Tua, because it was your column. It was very well done. I encourage everyone to read on alldolphins.com. And to me, we can haggle. Is it Mike McDaniel? Is it the speed of wide receivers? Is it Tua? It's everybody. I mean, everybody is contributing. You don't produce the way the Dolphin offense is producing without everybody chipping in. And at this point,
absolutely.
Okay, and at this point, it's like, okay. You wrote
but who's the player that everybody's giving the credit to? And I know you're going to say, oh, well, that's what they're supposed to say. Well, when the head coach, the running backs, the offensive linemen, the defense.
Omar, hold on. Omar, here's the thing: is if you're asking the question about if players are asked a question about Tua, they're going to throw out compliments left and right. That's how it works. If you were to tell me all the players are giving Tua the compliments, when the question is who's most responsible for the offense humming, that's a different story. And nobody's going to ask that question because
it's being brought up unsolicited.
Okay.
Is where you're seeing it most mentioned. Okay. But yes.
Okay. But again, Tua's balling. He's playing great. The offense is killing it. The point the issue I was going to take with you is there's no great desire. It's not the idea of like they're going to build up what the Dolphin offense is doing just to knock him down if it doesn't go great against Buffalo. It's 2023. Hold on, it's 2023.
You sure?
That's not the reason they're doing it. The reason everybody's doing it, the national media, is it's 2023. There are 785 talk shows that have a ton of airtime to fill. And what's the big story in the NFL right now at the moment?
The Miami Dolphins.
Monday, it was the Dolphins putting up 70 against Denver. So obviously, everybody's going to look for an angle. So what's going to be the angles? Can anybody stop this offense? Is it the best offense ever? Is it the fastest offense ever? To me, that's not the same thing as, yeah, let's build them up to bring them down. I mean, again, right, because and overreaction Monday, remember that term? Well, because of the media landscape in 2023, it's overreaction every day. And right now, because the overreaction is the Dolphins have the best offense that's ever lived. It's 3 games, and they played against an absolute garbage defense that looked like it quit on Sunday. Now, having said that, there's no denying this is a great offense. But who was it? Was it Frank Smith or somebody else who said today, like, because today was coordinator Thursday, said something like, before we start talking historical terms, can we play a little bit more in 3 games? So that's all. But again, it makes sense.
Yes.
The hyperbole to be thrown out there, because again, 70 points is not something we'd seen.
I promise you, if they win or struggle against the Buffalo Bills, I mean, if they lose or struggle against the Buffalo Bills, everybody's going to say, we knew they were frauds. We knew they weren't that good. You don't think so?
I completely disagree with you. You think they would use the word frauds? Dude, look at it this way. They played 3 games so far. The offense was lights out against the Chargers. It was solid, not great against New England, only 7 points in the second half. And it was ridiculous against Denver. Even if they lose against Buffalo and the offense has a bad day, does that eliminate what they did in the first 3 weeks? I don't think so. And I don't believe anybody would say they're frauds. The most you'll get is, yeah, maybe we need to slow down before we put them up against the 99 Rams or the 2007 Patriots or the 2018 Chiefs. I don't think I think you have a little us against the world mentality here where you're just waiting
it's
for.
It's always us against the world mentality in South Florida.
Sorry.
Hey, that's how that's how our mindset is. That's how our mind operates. And I'm waiting to see what the reaction is, because I think people are just waiting for them to stub their toe or stumble to say, yeah, I told you they weren't that good. And they're very good.
There's no denying it's a great offense. There's no denying it. It's not, again, what happened last Sunday was a complete anomaly, as Vic Fangio said.
Absolutely. No question.
Yeah, correct. It was crazy. And okay, once it gets back, and again, the more games they play, what's going to be like the consistent production on offense? And then we'll see. But if you can't see that this is a good offense, I mean, something's wrong with you. Thursday, I guess we need to address the injury update situation. Some mostly good news. Jalen Waddle is off the injury report, cleared concussion protocol. That's great news. And in fact, I look at all the 3 other changes. They're all for the positive. It's Teron Armstead back at practice, but limited. Connor Williams with his groin injury back at practice, but also limited. And then Durham Smythe, which is also very good news, went from limited to a full participant. What's your take from all of this?
Durham Smythe is my biggest concern and factor in this game, because I think him and Ingle, what interests me is the nickel package that Buffalo has and how you can exploit that, especially when you're playing in the 21 package with your tight end and your fullback. You've got to be able to exert your will against that nickel package, especially running the ball, because that nickel package seems to be Buffalo's base, and they try not to get out of it as much as possible. So that's going to be a big factor in that game, and you need Durham Smythe to do that. You need Durham Smythe to exert his will, or Alec Ingle, either one of the two. Also, that 21 package also features 2 running backs, and Raheem Mostert and Devon
Achane.
Achane, yes. Name change, not name change, name correction. So I'm curious. The one thing that I saw somebody break it down on ESPN. I think it was Dan Orlovsky who compared it. This is why the outside zone has always been a beautiful running scheme and conceptually creates so many challenges, because you're challenging teams vertically. And Daniel Orlovsky compared it to an accordion, where it's like, you accordion, you pull it out, you stretch it, you pull it out, you stretch it. Well, that's how the Dolphins are forcing you to play laterally, and then they're also attacking you vertically. It's a beautiful thing to watch and incredibly hard to build. It requires a perfect complement of talent and skill sets, and got to give Christopher props, because I never knew it could operate and work this well. And I certainly didn't know it could look the way that it looked with Teron Armstead out there, because I give Teron Armstead and that offensive line the majority of the credit for what was achieved last Sunday. And this isn't new. I've said this since Sunday.
Oh, no. Yes, you have. And I think if anybody, for those Kendall Lamb guys, fans, including yourself, I think we saw like Kendall Lamb's a good, solid veteran. Teron Armstead's a baller.
Oh my God. Teron Armstead was killing it in that game. I was watching that film, going over it, I was like, holy crap, this is what an elite offensive lineman looks like.
Yeah.
Like, oh man.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he played that well last season, which is just mind numbing.
Yeah. Overreaction there, maybe. Again, because
Yeah, just a tad bit, just a tad bit.
no, it's
I
tough.
mean, 350 rushing yards, you know.
Again, against a team that looked like it completely quit. They missed 24 tackles. I saw stats somewhere. I mean, it was and it was funny. I saw, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, and I responded to it. I kind of brought it to light for Dolphin fans. Mark Schlereth, the former Broncos offensive lineman, now he's an NFL analyst, highlighted a play where this is the Raheem Mostert touchdown where he stood up somebody at the 10-yard line, kept going. Austin Jackson then ran down the field, did a like frontward summer, like little roll into the end zone while the Denver players are like all looking around. And Schler was like, this pisses me off. And I kind of like retweeted it with a comment of like, Austin Jackson pissed off Mike Schler. And he replied today saying, no, he was pissed off at the way the Denver defense played, as well he should have been. That was embarrassing. Let's finish the injury report. These are the players whose status did not change from Wednesday to Thursday. River Craycraft, shoulder, again didn't practice. Eric Izukama, neck injury, again didn't practice. Jalen Phillips, that one we don't like. Oblique, again didn't practice. Savan Ahmed, groin, again limited. He's a running back with a groin injury, and thinking he maybe doesn't play again. And more Devon Achan, work. Safety Deshaun Elliott, ankle, groin, again limited. Tight end Tyler Croft, back, again limited. Eli Apple, neck. They no longer have the concussion evaluation thing on his status. Neck full. Tight end Julian Hill, ankle full.
Obviously, anytime you say neck, my neck pain just starts.
I know you do this.
Oh.
I guess Jalen Phillips is the big one there. Yes, Andrew Van Ginkel can take over and do a very solid job.
And Emmanuel Ogbah. Don't ignore Emmanuel Ogbah.
Okay.
Wow. The guy comes off a sack and an interception, probably one of his best games of his NFL career. And you're just
no, 2020 had his best games, Arizona against the Rams. It was in the fourth quarter of a 50-point win. I don't want to poo-poo what he did, but it still was in the fourth quarter of 50 points.
I saw a stat from CK Parrott, who obviously looked it up or got it from somebody else. I'm going to give him credit and say he looked it up, where Emmanuel Ogbah had his hand in the ground for the majority of his snaps this week, as opposed to previous weeks where he's standing up in the 2-point stance. And we all know it doesn't necessarily look that great in a 2-point stance. If anything, he's a third down guy. I've always said, and I shouldn't question Vic Fangio because he's forgotten more about defenses than I will ever know. But was a hand in the ground kind of player,
But also understand that if you and I didn't notice, I seem to recall his sack came when he was standing up, but I could be wrong. This was a byproduct also of the game getting completely out of hand in the second half, and Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, and Zach Sealer being pulled for the other guys to get playing time. I think when the game is in the balance, Emmanuel Ogbah is going to be a stand-up guy playing behind or alongside Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Andrew Van Ginkel. So, and now the Bills injury report. New name today. This is an interesting one. Long snapper Reed Ferguson. If you recognize the last name, that's because his brother Blake is a long snapper for the Dolphins. He showed up as a did not participate with a wrist injury. I'm assuming the Bills either have another long snapper available, or they're going to sign one before then, because if Ferguson can't go, you obviously have to have a long snapper. They had several changes. They had 5 changes on their injury report. All of them.
Ogbah was a sack with a hand in the ground. You made me have to look.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wrong. See, I can admit when I was wrong. Happens quite a bit, and I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong.
It does not happen quite a bit. Stop lying to the people. You're wrong on that. Blake Ferguson, long snapper. No injury? No injury?
No. This is Reed Ferguson who's injured.
Yeah. Reed Ferguson. Brother. I'm sorry, the brother.
Yeah.
No. Is there an injury connected to it?
Yeah. Wrist. wrist injury. So
Long snapper with a wrist injury.
correct. Something to keep an eye on. The other one to keep an eye on for the Bills, starting safety Jordan Poyer, who is almost like an extra cornerback back there. The dude can play the ball. Second day in a row, did not practice, got a knee injury he's dealing with. That's something to keep an eye on. The other ones, as we look here, Ryan Bates, offensive lineman ankle, went from DNP to limited. DB Saran Neal ankle went from DP to limited. And three other guys were full participants. Leonard Floyd, after not practicing Wednesday. Micah Hyde, who was also a key player after not practicing Wednesday. And cornerback Taron Johnson, who I think you mentioned, spoke highly of, went from limited to full on Thursday.
Yeah, if Jordan Poyer doesn't play, then we're probably looking at a situation where Taylor Rapp or DeMar Hamlin should be a name that's familiar to you for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. If they aren't obvious, he kind of died on the field and was resuscitated back to life. Big story last year in football season. But yeah, they would have to step up and kind of be elevated into a playing role. The very interesting thing to me is, you're thinking about or hearing about, I'm trying to figure out who can give the Dolphins the best challenge defensively. I'm of the opinion that Bill Belichick started something that everybody else hasn't tried to build on, which is a three safeties, kind of a dime package that featured three safeties, one left, one right, and one center, kind of preventing the deep ball, and then working on everything else, playing press underneath and working everything else underneath. I think the Bills, which I mistakenly said, and I apologize to all those who are offended that I do not know the schedule, but I don't know the schedule. I never know the schedule. I don't know the opponents. I don't study the schedule. Never have, never will. But the Bills have a very good and deep defensive line. And this is probably going to be a phenomenal test for this Dolphins defensive line. Not as good as the Eagles.
You mean offensive line?
Offensive line. Yes, it's going to be a phenomenal test for the offensive line. Not as good as the Eagles, but certainly it's going to be a major test for the Dolphins. And in terms of not necessarily protecting Tua, but can they get the running yards that they need with against a better front seven? Because I can tell you Buffalo doesn't have that great of a front seven.
Wait, time out.
I mean, I'm sorry, Denver.
Well, I was going to say, okay, yeah, because no, Denver. Well, and Omar, you're being very polite. Man, you're being polite there. Not nearly as polite, way more polite than usually. I've been saying that Denver does not have a great front seven. Woof.
Yeah, I feel like I've lost my edge. I'm kind of being too nice to people. Yeah, Denver doesn't have a good front seven. And you could tell, man, that was such a great strategy what the Dolphins came up with in terms of how to attack them. And these are all things that they can continue to build on. And I think will continue to build on. I mean, with Teron Armstead, that opens up a lot of things. I remember seeing some plays with Trent Williams, where he's basically utilized as a pulling tight end. And I think the Dolphins can incorporate some of those plays with Kendall Lamb there as left tackle and Trent Williams being put in motion. Oh, man, if you've seen those 49er plays, I think that is going to open up the run game tremendously. But, I'm sure Mike McDaniel has some very interesting wrinkles in store for the Buffalo Bills. But if there is a week that you open up your can of whoop, you know what, and all the plays that you've been saving and working on and building towards, this is that week.
Yeah, and admit it, you just want to get Kendall Lamb in the game. That's all you want to do. Be honest.
Come on, I've seen Teron Armstead. I'm okay. I'm okay with Kendall Lamb.
No, you want him as an extra the offensive lineman so he can operate as a tight end. That's what I'm saying.
10 plays. I love when coaches give another team something that they didn't prepare for or that they didn't. They've got to scheme up and coach up and go through the film and read and evaluate. Right now, the Dolphins' offensive line, they are humming, but you need to add that next element. And that's what the Dolphins have always talked about. We're continuing to build. And if we're continuing to build, something's next.
No, correct. And in Buffalo, I would tell you, I think the Eagles have a better defensive line. And and it's deep also. With the Bills, Buffalo's, we were talking about depth, the issue of depth coming into the season. Buffalo's got a lot of guys on defense. They got a lot of dudes on defense, because we're talking about the secondary and we're talking about Jordan Poyer maybe being out, and you bring up Taylor Rapp, who was like a solid player for the Rams, former, I want to say, third round pick maybe. Their first round pick from last year has been inactive. It's Kaiir Elam, who actually had a decent game against the Dolphins last year, if memory serves. He's somebody else who could be brought out for this particular game again to combat what the Dolphins do. So they got bodies, and this is going to be a fun challenge. I mean, if you want to talk about like something great to watch, you got the number one offense in the NFL going against the number two defense in the NFL. So, and for those again who are going to poo-poo, and this has happened when I brought up Cleveland yesterday because of their defense, and of course, and some of the comments like, well, look who they played, and it was Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee that they played. And it's like, well, they haven't played anybody. Okay, well, if we want to go that route, and if somebody turns around and looks at the Dolphins and play, well, their big games have been against the Chargers, which have the 31st ranked defense in the NFL and have sucked on defense even after they play the Dolphins, and then the Broncos. So it works both ways. So how about we just say the Dolphins have a great offense and Buffalo has a great defense, and then let's see how that matchup works out. And then there's the other side of the ball also to consider, where Buffalo has a very, very good offense. It's not been as explosive as the Dolphins, but if you don't think they have a good offense, don't know what to say. And the Dolphin defense has been good situationally. I know you haven't been terribly impressed by Vic Fangio.
Don't break.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think you were expecting Vic Fangio gets here and all of a sudden it's a top 5 defense like this.
Even Vic Fangio said that's no excuse. That adjustments and getting comfortable in my defense and scheme, that was an excuse for what we did against the Chargers. I don't know. I would like to see better front line play from the defensive line.
I agree,
and I think that applies to everybody, not excluding Andrew Van Ginkel. Gink, you're okay. Yes.
Wow, we love you, Gank.
Yeah, everybody else. I mean, you're especially in this situation against Josh Allen, and I was talking to Bradley Chubb about defending Josh Allen, and he made a very good point. Something that I saw a lot with Justin Herbert, where you cannot over pursue. Like, you couldn't over pursue Justin Herbert because he's going to take off.
Correct.
And he's going to run and he's going to deliver chunk yardage. And it's the same thing with Josh Allen. And Bradley Chubb said it kind of is instinctual for him, whereas he's like looking, it doesn't see it, he's ready to run.
Mm-hmm.
And while Josh Allen has said that he needs to change his style and change his approach, we all know that a leopard doesn't change its stripes, or a cheetah doesn't change
or its spots. One of the two.
Okay, a leopard has spots. Yeah, where do I get stripes from? Okay, a zebra doesn't change its stripes.
You need to take your daughter to the zoo, apparently.
Yeah, I do. Miami Metro Zoo. It definitely is on my to-do list, but it's so damn hot lately. It's cooling on. Right.
Yeah, but no, it's a fun time. We used to do that with the kids quite a bit. No, and I would make the argument that while Justin Herbert can move, Josh Allen is in a different category as a runner. And in fact, while he doesn't have the speed of Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields, or am I forgetting somebody? Nobody else comes to mind right now. Cam Newton in his heyday. Well, Cam Newton also had a combination of what Josh Allen has is that he can move and he's huge.
It's huge, yeah. I was trying to come up with names comparative with Bradley Chubb, and we did come up with Cam Newton in terms of guys who are just that big. Like, there's a difference between the Michael Vicks, who are scramblers and are super athletic, but then there's the athleticism and the size. Like, that's the biggest thing. And Bradley Chubb said something else that I found very interesting, whereas Javon Holland said this. No, I think both of them said it. With a guy like Josh Allen, you can't be trying to strip the ball, because he'll shed you like a block. He'll shed you like like you're bad. What something you shed? Like, I don't know.
A bad habit.
Your old skin.
Okay.
if you're
We're
a
getting deep into the
reptile.
metaphors here. No, to me, the key with Josh Allen is you mentioned keep him in the pocket and make him want to make that throw where he has to fit it like in a really tight window
Yeah.
between defenders, which sometimes he'll hit and then sometimes you can pick him off. And that's part of what happened last.
Yeah, it's a good strategy. Now that you think about it, this bend don't break stuff that I'm not really a fan of. I'm just being honest. It fits Josh Allen because they're going to keep everything in front of him, just like they did with Justin Herbert. Keep everything in front of him, make him throw. And except for the fact that they made that let the Chargers run. You certainly can't do that because I believe I looked up rushing stats and Buffalo is like Buffalo is
They're up there.
yeah, they're up there. They are having a resurgent rushing season. 5 yards a carry right now, 4 touchdowns. The Cook brothers at 267 rushing yards at 6.1 per attempt. That is pretty impressive.
Yes, it is. No, it will be quite the challenge. We should also discuss coordinator Thursday. Anything from either Danny Crossman? We actually no. I was
Buffalo's at 149.3 rushing yards per game, which is ridiculous.
Are they like? Didn't I see like they were like maybe second in the league in rushing behind the Dolphins?
Yeah, the Dolphins are only averaging 188.3 rushing yards per game and 6.1 yards.
Oh, they got 350 yards against Denver. That'll kind of do it. So the
three players had rushing attempts over 40 yards against Denver. So
correct, yeah, and it got crazy in the second half. Anyway, so Danny Crossman, the coordinator spoke. Danny Crossman, Vic Fangio, Frank Smith, as well as safeties coach Joe Casper, offensive line coach Butch Barry. We asked Danny Crossman what happened on the kickoff return for a touchdown for the Broncos, and he basically suggested, well, there were a few reasons. Number one, some of the regulars were not on the field because of the score. Number two, some of the backside pursuit was less than ideal. And number three, some people lost their
lane integrity.
And then the kick also was less than ideal, as in it wasn't a touchback because why shouldn't they all be touchbacks? And then the other thing that stood out to me is Butch Barry took the high road, and as you figured he would when he was asked how good it felt to be part of an offense that put up a 70 burger on his former team, the Denver Broncos, which so unceremoniously dumped him last year in December when they made the coaching change to an interim head coach, and he basically kind of like
and did a ding dong the witch is dead celebration.
Yeah, it was like it was a win, and then inside I'm thinking, yeah, he probably was thinking, 70, yeah, I wish it had been 90,
Well, I probably wishes it would have been 73, along with a couple of other players on that team. But I got
Javon Holland, maybe. Go ahead.
Not just Javon Holland. There were a lot of players in that locker room who wanted that 73 burger. I'm not going to call them out. Raheem Mostert was at the podium saying, "Yeah, I wanted the 73." But I found something interesting because Raheem Mostert told us that it was Jalen Waddle who was on the sideline that sort of filled in everybody why the crowd was chanting 3 more points. And he asked somebody in the crowd, and the crowd's like, yeah, you guys are, you need 3 points to set the NFL scoring record. And so, that filtered amongst the team because everybody's trying to figure out, like, how did they know?
2023, you can look in the phone.
Yeah, but I mean, now, remember back in the day when you couldn't use your phone in the stadium because it was just too much activity going on and your phone wasn't working? I still have issues at the Heat Stadium, by the way. But Verizon, thanks to the Tom Garfinkel, everybody's got phone access at the Dolphins Stadium. So everybody knew because they got the updates, which was absolutely insane. Where the yelling 3 more points. Wow. Special day, but as the Dolphins have told you, time to move on. And to me, some of the things that I find very interesting about this matchup is, one, I'm very curious about, and I'm still trying to investigate Tua's obsession with Teron Johnson, the nickel cornerback, which he clearly went out of his way to praise yesterday. I'm gonna definitely be looking at film of Teron Johnson to try to figure out what was it that Tua likes so much.
Keep talking. Go ahead and look up something real quick.
And then also on top of that, any majority of the time the Dolphins have had success against Josh Allen. They've had a spy shadowing Josh Allen, and basically wherever he went, that spy went. I remember when I first started seeing it was Walt Aikens. I believe it's been Javon Holland at one point during the Brian Flores era. Can't remember exactly when it was. My question to you is, do you think it's wise to spy or no spy?
Well, here's the thing, though. If we're going to be honest about it, if the Dolphins really had that much success against Josh Allen, even in the games
where there's a spy,
and I know it's coming. I was going to say, even in the games where, like for example, the Dolphins won last year, or the two that they almost won, it's not like he's not putting up huge, passing numbers. And I wrote something for alldolphins.com yesterday. The key with Josh Allen has been, and if you look at the game at Hard Rock Stadium last September, they won because they bent, but they didn't break. And then they almost won the playoff game because they came up with 3 takeaways. And the Saturday night game in December, Dolphins played well. The offense was really good, but Josh Allen was completely ridiculous. And if you want to talk about a game of quarterback wins, yeah, that was one right there. No, there have been games, and shame on me for not paying closer attention. There have been a couple of games where they've kind of muted them. In fact, when Brian Flores was a head coach, this is where I duck for mentioning his name. There were several occasions where in the second half, the Dolphins kind of shut down the Bills, but the damage had been done. They wound up losing the game anyway. But it was because the offense wasn't performing. There was like a 26-11 game in Buffalo. I remember where Allen did absolutely nothing in the second half, but they couldn't come back. So they have had some success at times, but the bigger success, again, last year, for example, was bend, don't break, and force the takeaways.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it for this episode of what is this podcast called? All Dolphins Podcast.
Oh, shame on you.
I'm sorry. It's been a long week. Then you got Miami Dolphins Insiders as well for Fans First Network.
Sports Network.
So, there are a lot of names. We thank you and appreciate you for listening, for enjoying our podcast, and for tuning in. We encourage you to tell a friend, like, subscribe, comment. We're in the comment section, both of us. So you know where to find us.
Without question. And as Omar said, we thank you so much for watching. And then tomorrow is going to be the final injury reports of the week. We're having Poker Todd back tomorrow for our betting segment.
Yes, Poker Todd betting segment.
Okay, so we might do another double duty tomorrow. Stay tuned. Thanks, everyone.